And I would like to welcome our international guest, Susana Saavedra. I'm going to read a little bit about Susana because I think it's worth that since she's come all the way here. Susana is a Spanish specialist in endangered species, invasive species management. She has worked for the Spanish, Portuguese, UK and Cook Island governments and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds at Ornithological Society of Polynesia in developing strategies and practical field activities for reducing the common myna, the crested myna, the Javan myna, sounds like a vendetta on mynas, Susana, and the red-vented bulbul and some other pest species. She has been personally responsible for the eradication of mynas on a number of islands, including 3 of the Canary Islands and Mallorca. She controls mynas and other exotic bird species in others, like Ascension Island, St Helena Island and Singapore. Susana is currently engaged in tackling the problem of mynas and bulbuls in Tahiti. Could you please welcome Susana?
First of all, I want to thank Bill and the Canberra Indian Myna Action Group for the invitation. And I want to say thank you to all the Australians because I have had a very nice welcome. So, my name is Susana Saavedra. I am a Spanish citizen born in the Canary Islands. I am a self-made person, if you allow me to use that expression. And before 2000, I was deeply involved in animal care and animal training, working as zookeeper or animal training for movies, shows, and company dogs. The first time I saw a myna bird, it was in mid-99s. Of course, I have had no idea which type of bird it was or which type of species. I was not even sure if it was a local bird or not. I have learned to deal with mynas and bulbuls throughout my own experience by deeply observing the bird behavior, designing and testing traps, shooting and or using poison. Regarding common mynas, their high grade of adaptability to new environments make them able to show different types of behaviors in each invaded island. Of course, they have a basic myna behavior, but do not display the same skill or attitudes in all the invaded islands. I have managed eradication and control efforts, again, introduced and breeding populations in 9 different islands and in 1 continental area so far. The IUCN has calculated the surface covered by the Canary and Balearic Islands in more than 150,000 hectares. Here in red, we can see eradication projects achieved, especially in the Canary Islands and the Balearic Islands, and in green, control efforts or control campaigns. Here we can see the Canary Archipelago and Tenerife, the islands where I am from. The geographic location of islands where I have worked is really wide. That means that each island represents a new environment challenge, a new social challenge, and a new reality. Obviously, it's a complicated situation, so much that its viability has been often questioned. My working strategy has been improved throughout many years and basically consists in the following steps. Evaluation and planning. Normally I do it ex situ. I try to gain all the information that I can out of the place, such funds, available resources, pathways, census, all that if possible. Then I jump in the project design normally in situ, when I am already in the place where I'm going to work. Birds are carefully studied in the territories, water, and food places, and roost site. I look after the inter and intra-specific relationships pathways, and I look very close on the relationship they have with humans. Depending on the size of the tortured population and the project background, funds, political volunteer, stakeholders and community support, control or eradication aim is, I should say that always I have eradication in mind. I divide the work in field work, in local staff training and media awareness, and normally it's at the end of the work I offer the contractor a final report with all the considerations that they need to have in mind, depending if it was a eradication control or a eradication effort or a control effort. Fieldwork, trapping. Here we have the traps. These are the decoy traps. The first one in the top of the corner was the original one. I received it from Belgium when I was working in Tenerife, and as you can see, it works having inside a decoy compartment, and in this case, 4 trapping compartments. It's a more or less 50-70 centimeter wide trap, so it makes me impossible to travel with it worldwide. So what I have done is I developed a trap adapted to the Myna local behavior and to the environment in each place I go. Here you can see it round, this one is square, this one has 8 compartments, and this one has 12. Then I work too with funnel traps. Funnel traps have 2 spaces, one for catching and one for holding. You have seen them very similar outside, but what I find more important in the funnel traps is that I use a sort of bob wire curtains in the entrance of the funnels to avoid any possibility of animals escaping from the traps once they go inside. I think it's an important question because I have seen mynas trying to go in and trying to go out, and no way. Of course, all the traps, I have 2 other traps being testing now in Tahiti. And because I am testing them, I am not showing, but I will give you a report if things go as well as with the other traps. Of course, all the traps that I use have in consideration animal welfare. All the traps permits the birds to open the wings. They provide shelter against sun and rain. And normally I make them, I try that the food and the water last at least 2 days minimum, because I can get sick, my car can get broken. There are many reasons that will not allow me to reach the traps, and I don't want to have the birds suffering. I should say that I do not hate mynas. I think it's an important question. Shooting. Shooting has seldom been used so far. Only in 3 islands, and I normally use, those are my arms. I use the Gamo brand, and as you can see, I use the pistol for short distances. Normally, I get hidden in a car. As soon as you are in a car, you disappear for the mynas. It's spectacular. And this one is used for long distances. Poisoning. The herbicide is chosen in areas where birds get concentrated, normally in rubbish tips. And I use poison always after gathering consensus with all the social elements that could be interested. Animal welfare, environmental NGOs. Normally, poison is used after a detailed risk analysis, taking in consideration dangers for humans, wild and domestic animals, and ecosystems, of course. The bait is chosen, and the herbicide, in this case stallicide, is applied. This compound metabolized very quickly and does not transcend into the trophic chain. The results normally are estimated by counting carcasses when possible. I have found very difficult roost sites in places where it's completely impossible to reach. Here we can see that's a bait station that we were using in Tahiti. The idea was to affect birds flying into the valleys. This one is one of the most populated valleys by the Tahiti monarch. So we set up a battery of bait stations in the top of the mountain, but of course it was impossible to count the carcasses because Tahiti is very steep. Here, this one is in Santa Elena Island, and we were using the poison in the rubbish tip. This is the way it is cooked, and normally we use glove protection. Decoys, because of for the funnel traps, normally I do not use decoys. Normally it's not needed, but the same species in different islands, they like and they jump and they queue to go inside the funnel traps, and in other islands they just simply do not care. For example, in Tahiti, I tried to trap mynas in Tahiti with funnel traps. I was not successful, but I was having a high success using funnel traps in Ascension Island. Really, really good. So decoys. Keeping alive wild birds to be used as decoys is time-consuming. It's time-consuming because handling, feeding, watering, cleaning, enrichment, and vet care. On the other hand, it is a very important tool to increasing the trapping radio when using decoy traps. Traps without decoy trap, yes, but much, much less. Cridoderes and Pygnonotus are minor bulbul birds, are gregarious and aggressive birds. These two main reasons, combined with the inherent curiosity, especially with mynas, drive them into the trap. If they do not show any interest or aggressive behavior against the decoy, they normally get attracted by bait. As diet for the captiva birds, and depending on variability, insectivorous pellets is the best, of course. It's a balanced, very easy food. But I normally I use in Tahiti, I cannot reach insectivorous food for birds, so I use cat food supplemented with fresh fruit. And sometimes when I am in places where I cannot even find cat food, I use kitchen waste, which works perfectly. Normally, I supplemented it with fresh seasonal fruit. Bait. To choose the correct bait is as important as to using decoys. The bait should be changed very often to keep it attractive for the birds and to keep the cages clean. That's an important thing too. I have bait mynas with tenebrio molitor, with bread, cat food, dog food, chicken waste, rice, bread, depending on the place. But what I normally do is I observe the birds in the place and I try to offer them what they like as species, what they like locally, and what they are lacking locally, depending on the season. Let's say if Tahiti is a special case because it's warm and nice and they have everything all the time. But in other islands, I try to figure out what they like to eat normally, locally, and I try to provide them with what they do not have, because it's the way to make them get interested in the bait. What bait to use, that needs to be carefully considered, because we need to avoid as much as possible to trap what we don't want to trap. Three main reasons. I always avoid to trap endangered species. Like in Tahiti, it will be a big failure if I trap only one single Tahiti monarch. So I get very focused on the bite, because I don't want to interfere or disturb the critical endangered species that we are trying to save. The second question regarding bait is that we should try to avoid other native or exotic species that we have hanging around the traps, because if I trap one other exotic species, that means that they are using one catching space that I am missing for the invasive ones. And another third important question regarding the baits is that it's very important to keep any predators away from the traps. I don't want to attract dogs, cats, insects, especially ants are a problem in Tahiti, or rodents, because all these exotic species can harm the decoy, and I have a high-level standard of animal welfare. I don't care if I am trapping mynas or I am protecting whatever. They are animals, they deserve this respect, and normally mynas are where they are because our fault. So it's a question of trying to be nice and polite with all the species. Then I provide local staff training when fundings and viability are in place. I train local government people or NGO staff. Of course, for each island, I develop special ways to talk with them. Here in the top, we have the Tahitian volunteers. They were training. It was amazing, the local support and the local interest on the project from the Tahitians. These were the first community meetings. I normally take a couple of samples of the birds that I am working with, especially the invasive ones, because what is amazing is that the people do not know what is local or native and what is not. Why? Because normally they, like me, they get born in an island where the mynas are already present since they are childs. And normally there is a lack of educational effort in the schools to really teach people or children what is native and what is not. Here it's in Santa Elena Island, and this one is in Cook Islands. Media awareness. It is very important to get in contact with local media. Local institutions. I talk with the local government, environment, NGOs, pet shops, private collections, police. I talk with everybody. As soon as I reach one of the islands, I get in contact with all the stakeholders, communities. It is convenient to inform them that of the project and let them think slowly the message that the effort that we are going to do is not to go against the invasive species, is that we want to protect and to really give an opportunity to the native ones. It sounds easy and simple, but this message, well presented, helps a lot. That was what happens in Tahiti. When I arrived into Tahiti, I look at the island and I say, oh my goodness, what can I do here alone? Because I have been working almost alone before Tahiti. So, having Australia in mind, I talk with Bill and I say, look, Bill, I will try to copy the system you have in Australia in Tahiti, and it works. it really works. It's amazing. The local people was giving us plenty of support. They allowed us to put traps in the house. They take care about the traps, the decoys. They kill the birds by themselves. They have a different level standard on animal welfare, very different from Europe and very different from from Australia. They were saying me, Susana, we don't want you to, because I was setting up the traps and checking the traps during the night time. Always, please never approach traps during the daylight. We are going to tell miners, clever birds, they learn very quickly. They will learn that traps and humans are related. As soon as we get that together, we will have trap shyness. That will be a big problem. So I was removing all the trap birds after 7 in the night, and after a while, the local people were saying, Susana, you are working too much. Don't worry, we don't mind. And so they start slowly to become autonomous trappers. So that was meaning that I was only need to check that everything was going well. But they were the ones really doing the hard work. So campaign results. Here you have a small resume on all the places where I have been and the results. And as conclusions, we can say that eradication of myna birds can be achieved on islands so far, my experience, when the populations are lower than 50 individuals. Some people like to say that 50 individuals is not a big deal. But since I started eradicating mynas in the Canary Islands, I have kept 4 islands free of mynas for the last 13 years. And that is really amazing. And it's really, really nice to be able to walk in a place where you only can listen to the myna silence. Yeah. The use of decoy or funnel traps is the most effective means of catching mynas in a variety of islands, independent of the breeding season or in the breeding moment they are in the year. It can lead to a relevant reduction on numbers of birds, as you can see here. And what I normally suggest to the government is that when they are involved in a long-term program on islands, a combination of different methods needs to be used, but getting organized, having a protocol, so that poisoning do not interfere with trapping, that shooting do not interfere with poisoning. So we are clever animals. So I always say that a coordination protocol must be put in place to avoid disturbances. The involvement of local training personnel is highly, highly recommended in these cases, and I always try to keep local people. I always try to pass on them my myna virus because it's the only way. You need to really have people focused on what is need to be done. So here you can see Tenerife, Singapore, Gran Canaria. Tenerife, Gran Canaria, and Fuerteventura as Canary Islands. Mallorca is Balearic Islands, all them are Spanish ones, and then all the rest are international. Singapore, Ascension, Portugal. Portugal, of course, is not an island, but it's my first continental area. Tahiti and Attu. So, thank you very, very much.
Okay, we have time for 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah, thank you, Susana. I was a bit confused with the valve. You know how the valve was like a curtain?
Yes.
Can you explain how that works, please?
Let me try to go back and show it to you. Okay. This one is the side that you have inside the trap. And this one is the side that you have outside the trap. So that one is the outside door or outside space for reach the funnel, and this one is inside. So normally what I do is I use the same wire and I cut the wires in the middle I cut the wires in the middle to let a curtain. This curtain let the mynas go in, but they never will go able to go out. Sometimes, if I make a mistake and I cut that too low, I can put a little piece of wire from here to keep the curtain always closed. So, because myna will try to find out a way to escape. They don't mind, they jump into the funnel, they wherever. And they even try to push further the curtain. But as soon as they see that they cannot go out, normally, in my experience, in the traps that I have been doing by hand, they normally jump into the funnels. Mynas like to be in high places. And what I do is, sorry, the photo is not perfect. When I am working, I have no time to make auto photos, you know. So my funnel to help mynas to move from this trapping space to the holding space is different, because I do have there a curtain too. My funnel is not like the one you are using here, this way. My funnel is just square with a little bit of surface, so it's placed at the same level as the funnels. So it's easy for them to see the escaping place, so they jump into the funnels. From the funnels, they jump into the small corridor, and they just push a second wire curtain, and they get super trapped in the holding space. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to ask how you ensure target specificity with your poisoning stations. So how do you make sure that just Indian miners are taking your bait, your poison?
Because we were using video cams to check.
No other birds go there?
Oh, only mynas and bulbus. Because we were using rice, and because of the height of the place, no other birds were hanging around. They don't have sparrows, they don't have, the pigeons are down close to the coast, so they never fly into the top. So we set up cricket camps, and we were tracking the bait stations to be sure that we were not affecting other species, and we only see mynas and bulbul sitting there. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about this curtain. We've used something similar but not the same, and we found that they wouldn't go through. So I just wondered whether you do find it reduces, like I don't know whether you always have the curtain, but whether it reduces the miners going in at all.
For me, it has been working very, very good. I was using magnet myna traps and the funnel one. So this is I design and I make it by hand. And what I figured out is that when the rats and rabbits were trying to go into the funnel traps, in the magnet traps, they were able to blend the system to avoid the mynas to go out again. And in this case, they were not able to blend it. So for me, it was a difference, you know? Because I am not in the need of going and fix it and fix it and fix it. I try all the time to avoid to fix and fix and fix traps, you know, because it's a lot of time-consuming work.
I think we'll make this the last question.
You mentioned that Portugal was your first continental project. All your others have been on islands, which have obvious advantages for eradication. What special considerations are you expecting for Portugal as opposed to an island already?
I have made a big effort to keep Spain free of mynas for a long, long, long time, and now we figure out that they have around 400 mynas living in Portugal. That means that they do not understand between borders. So as soon as the population explode, they will cross the border into Spain, and I will get mad. So I am trying to to convince the local government in Portugal, so the national government in Portugal, and asking for funds in Europe, but it's quite difficult to convince governments, you know. First of all, they have the crisis situation in Europe. It's really bad. But on the other hand, my big fight always is not with the miners, it's with the governments, to really convince them that it can be done and it must be done, you know. So I am trying to figure out to set up a live project, but it's a lot of work. Normally I work alone. So I would really like to get rid of them. I think it can be done. Still, they have Cridoderes tristis and Cridoderes cristatellus. They are more or less, they have two different populations, around 200 birds. I was there in 2010. We were trapping birds to figure out if they were having any type of diseases that they were sharing with native species. But I would like to stop mynas in Portugal because it's Portugal, Spain, France, you know, like here in Australia. They will have, for example, I think it would be a problem for them to jump over the Alps between Spain and France, but they can fly, when they fly, they use roads as pathways, you know, and between mountains you have roads. So I am trying hard to convince Europe to go rid of them. It will be nice.
Okay, I think that's it. Can we thank Susana for a fascinating presentation?